At 6 o'clock on the dot, I became a multimillionaire, although you wouldn't have known it by looking at me. I wasn't standing on a yacht, or uncorking the world's most expensive champagne, or even wearing anything nicer than the same t-shirt I'd spilled coffee on that morning. Instead, I was sitting at my desk in the corner of our living room, staring at the laptop screen while a confirmation email politely informed me that $20 million had been wired into my account. There was no dramatic music, no cinematic slow-motion moment, no sudden collapse into grateful tears, just a quiet click, a blinking cursor, and a number so absurdly large that my brain needed a few seconds to accept it was real. The sum looked like a typo, the sort of thing a bored teenager might fake in Photoshop. But there it was, verified, irrevocable. Mine. I had imagined this moment before, in the same way people imagine winning the lottery or discovering a forgotten Picasso in their attic. Fantasy, not expectation. And yet, somehow, the moment itself felt strangely ordinary. Maybe that's the curse of being an engineer. Even life-changing events register like data points instead of miracles. By 6:07, barely 7 minutes into my new financial status, I also came to a second, far less celebratory realization. My wife wanted me gone. And not in the we need to talk, emotional drift apart kind of way. No, this was colder, cleaner, surgical. She wanted me gone in the kind of way that involved paperwork, inheritance, and a legal line reading, surviving spouse. If there's a world record for the fastest jump from getting wealthy to realizing your spouse might rather see you gone, I'm pretty sure I said it. Before we continue, we ask you to hit the hype button, subscribe, and like the video to help the channel grow. Tell us which city you are from in the comments. We would like to get to know our audience better. The party was Vicky's idea, naturally. She said we needed to honor the moment properly, which, in Vicky speak, meant her version of proper, choreographed luxury, curated guest list, a level of elegance specifically designed to be photographed, hashtagged, and envied. I'd suggested a quiet night, maybe ordering pizza, maybe inviting the 2 or 3 people who actually knew what the last 6 years had cost me in sanity, sleep, and hairline. Vicky had blinked at that suggestion the way someone might blink at a cockroach crawling across a wedding cake. So she planned her version of a celebration. A champagne tower tall enough to violate several architectural codes, a catering service that charged per canapé, and exactly 50 guests, most of whom I'd either never met or wouldn't recognize without a LinkedIn search. She didn't ask if I wanted this. In Vicky's world, events weren't requests. They were decisions already engraved into the evening. Our living room, the same room where I once soldered metal parts on a folding table we bought secondhand, now looked like the ballroom of a high-end startup launch. Fairy lights hung like constellations. A jazz quartet played in the corner, pretending not to notice they were 5 feet from the houseplant I kept forgetting to water. Everything smelled like perfume, money, and things rented by the hour. I stood near the archway leading into the kitchen, the only spot in the house that felt remotely like neutral territory. From there, I watched Vicky move through the crowd. No, glide. She never walked at parties, she performed motion. Every gesture was intentional, every laugh calculated to land at the perfect pitch that implied she was thrilled, magnetic, effortlessly successful. She was wearing red. Of course she was. Vicky never wore red for comfort, only for conquest. The dress clung in a way that said expensive, and every time she turned, the fabric caught the light like she'd hired her own personal spotlight. She laughed too loudly, touched arms too easily, tilted her head at flattering angles she'd practiced in front of mirrors long before I ever met her. The whole evening felt rehearsed, like I was on a set for a commercial I hadn't agreed to be in. 5 years of marriage had taught me this much. Vicky didn't live life, she branded it. If reality didn't come with enough shine, she polished it. If emotion didn't look convincing, she restaged it. Tonight, she wasn't celebrating our success. She was selling the image of a power couple she'd always wanted to be seen as. and I wasn't her husband in that moment. I was a prop, a headline, a walking before and after story with a price tag attached. Vicky spotted me lingering in the kitchen archway, and, with the precision of someone who always knows where the camera is, redirected her path toward me. She approached like a publicist, escorting a reluctant celebrity. "Bruce, darling," she said, her tone a blend of affection and instruction. "Stop hiding. These are our guests." "Your guests," I replied, not bothering to soften the correction. "I recognize maybe 10 people here." She smiled, the kind of smile that didn't reach her eyes but photographed beautifully. "Networking, sweetheart. You're an inventor, not a hermit." She leaned in and kissed my cheek, not tenderly but strategically, just long enough for anyone watching to register. Look, they're still in love. Then she pulled back, assessing the room like a general surveying a battlefield. "Come on," she said. "Your mother-in-law wants to toast." Ah, yes. The real test of the evening, Virginia Pierce, the woman who treated life as a perpetual audition for the role of supreme arbiter of worthiness, and who had never once, in all the years I'd known her, believed I passed the casting call. Virginia stood beside the champagne tower, already 2 glasses deep, and somehow still managing to look like she disapproved of the bubbles themselves. She had the posture of someone permanently bracing for disappointment, shoulders drawn back, chin raised, an expression set in stone sometime around the Reagan administration. Her face was the kind that aged not by softening, but by sharpening, eyebrows like judgmental checkmarks, lips pressed into a line so thin it looked mathematically impossible. She wore pearls and disdain in equal measure. When she saw me, she smiled, or rather, arranged her mouth into the shape of a smile without letting any warmth contaminate it. "There he is," she announced. "The golden boy." I nodded politely. "Virginia." 20 million, she said, the way someone else might say fungal infection. "Quite the windfall for tinkering in a garage." "It was a laboratory," I said, because technically it was. "And it took 6 years." "Of course." She sipped her champagne delicately, like even liquid was beneath her. "I'm sure it was very difficult, all those hours away from Victoria, but I suppose it paid off in the end." The words weren't even subtle. The implication floated in the air like expensive perfume. I had neglected her daughter, stumbled into fortune by accident, and didn't really deserve any of it. Vicky squeezed my arm, just a hint of pressure, a subtle warning. Don't engage, don't escalate, play the part. "Mother's just proud," Vicky said brightly, her tone lacquered with fake charm. "Aren't you, Mom?" "Naturally." Virginia raised her glass a fraction of an inch. "To Bruce, who finally made something of himself." There it was, her signature move. Compliment sharpened into insult, wrapped in a social bow, delivered with the confidence of someone who'd never been meaningfully challenged in her life. I didn't bother reacting. I'd stopped caring what Virginia thought of me years ago. I had 20 million reasons not to give a damn anymore, but even before the money, I'd long since realized you couldn't win a game whose rules changed every time you were about to score. Vicky excused herself to check on the catering, which was code for float through the room and get praised for hosting. I watched her cross the space, still in red, still glowing under the attention she curated like sunlight through a stained glass window. That's when I saw him. A man I didn't recognize, tall, confident, mid-30s maybe, wearing the kind of flawlessly tailored suit that doesn't come off a rack, but out of a conversation that starts with, "Let's talk fabric weight and Italian stitching." His watch probably cost more than my first car. His posture said, "Alpha." His smile said, "I'm used to winning." And Vicky, my wife, leaned in to whisper something to him. He laughed, touched her elbow. Not a quick accidental graze, but a gesture with intent. Familiar, casual in the way that only happens after repetition. His hand lingered a beat too long. Hers didn't move away, Not jealousy, observation. Engineers notice patterns, anomalies, repetition. And something about that moment did not fit the perfect loving wife brand Vicky had been projecting all evening. I filed it away, noted it, time-stamped it in my head like evidence. The first crack in the facade is never loud. It's just visible to the one person who finally starts paying attention. The evening dragged the way only an event you didn't want can drag. Slow on the inside, fast on the outside. Everyone else seemed to be having a perfectly delightful time. The room got louder, warmer, more crowded. Champagne flowed like someone had taken the phrase "open bar" as a personal challenge. People laughed too hard at stories I'd already heard told better. They asked the same questions in slightly different accents. So, what exactly does your invention do? Is it true they paid you $20 million? Are you going to retire now? I smiled, nodded, repeated well-rehearsed answers, and wondered how soon I could leave my own house without raising eyebrows. There's a particular kind of loneliness that happens when you're surrounded by people, and none of them could help you bury a body, or even assemble a table from IKEA. These weren't my people. They were Vicky's. Always had been. Around 5:30, the house hit maximum capacity. The air felt thick, like the oxygen had to file a request for permission before entering your lungs. The jazz quartet had abandoned subtlety and was now trying to overpower the roar of 50 simultaneous conversations. The catering staff moved like battlefield medics, slipping through clusters of guests with trays of shrimp skewers and foie gras on edible spoons. Everything was going exactly according to Vicky's plan. And that's when I saw it. Vicky stood near the drinks table along the far wall, back turned slightly, posture just angled enough to seem casual, while still hiding her hands from most of the room. She reached into her clutch. Not slowly, not nervously. Smooth, practiced. Like she'd done this before. Like the move had muscle memory. She took out something small. A vial or a pill container. Something palm-sized that didn't belong at a celebration unless the celebration was for committing insurance fraud. She glanced around. Not a big, guilty head scan, just a quick sweep. The kind of visual check people do when they've thought about every risk, except the possibility that someone is already watching. Her eyes moved over the crowd, assessing angles, sightlines, witnesses. She didn't see me in the kitchen doorway. I was just another shape in the background. Then she did it. She tipped whatever she'd taken out into one of the champagne flutes on the tray. No hesitation, no second thoughts. A motion clean and fast enough to suggest rehearsal. She didn't swirl the drink, didn't stir it, just let the liquid blend naturally. Then she marked the glass. I watched her finger trace something at the base, maybe a tiny scratch with a ring, maybe a smudge of lipstick, maybe a nail nick. Something only she would recognize, a marker, a tag, an identifier. This wasn't an impulse. This was a system. She picked up a different champagne flute for herself, perfectly normal, unmarked, then drifted away from the table like nothing had happened. My heart didn't just race, it shifted gears, stronger, quicker, like my body was trying to generate the force needed for a choice I hadn't even made yet. There is a moment in every engineer's life when emotion shuts off and the mind starts running simulations. I wasn't scared yet. I was processing. Maybe I'd misinterpreted. Maybe it was medicine, supplements, something innocent. Maybe it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. I knew what I saw. And if it had been innocent, she wouldn't have checked for witnesses first. 5 minutes later, Vicky reappeared. Gliding, smiling, glowing like a woman on top of the world. She had 2 champagne glasses now, one for her and the marked one. She found me with magnetic precision, like a guided missile disguised as a spouse. "Bruce," she said, slightly breathless, as if she'd hurried through the crowd just to reach me. "Let's do a private toast before the big one. Just us. You and me." She held out the marked glass. The same glass I had seen her doctor, the way she looked at me, Bright, adoring, perfectly on brand, might have convinced anyone else, but I knew better. The performance was flawless, and that was the problem. She extended the marked glass toward me, the way a magician offers the audience a card, confident, smiling, certain I'd play my part without hesitation. In that instant, everything connected like components on a circuit board. The expensive party she insisted on hosting, the carefully timed toasts, her insistence I drink champagne instead of beer, the rehearsed affection, the way she'd hovered near the drinks table earlier. This wasn't a celebration, it was a stage, and I was supposed to be the man who stepped into the trap willingly. For a moment I just stared at the glass, and she mistook my hesitation for sentiment. Her smile softened, went gentler, more wife, less predator. She even tilted her head, like she was waiting for me to say something romantic, something about how far we'd come. But I wasn't thinking about romance. I was running through dosage math, how fast a substance gets absorbed, how long it takes to kick in. I was wondering how long she'd been preparing, whether she'd studied which compounds disappear quickly in the body, which ones wouldn't show up in standard tests, which would look like stress or fatigue instead of something deliberate. The part of my brain built for solving problems was already whirring, assembling information into a framework. If she truly wanted me gone for good, she would have chosen something that worked quicker. If she wanted me unconscious, she'd need witnesses. If she wanted me unstable, she'd need a medical record. If she wanted control of the money, power of attorney, guardianship, legal incapacity, not murder, ownership. That realization was somehow worse. I forced a faint smile, the kind that could be mistaken for distraction, and said, "Actually, I need to check something in the kitchen. The caterers had a question earlier. Hold that thought." I didn't wait for her to answer. I turned and walked away, calm on the outside, hands trembling inside my pockets. Behind me, I could feel the heat of her frustration, even without seeing her face. I knew exactly what expression she was wearing, the microsecond tightening at the jaw, the tiny flare of irritation in her nostrils before she smothered it under a new smile. I stepped into the kitchen, opened the fridge, and grabbed a beer. Not because I needed the drink, but because the cold bottle gave my fingers something to hold while my brain recalibrated. Through the doorway, I could still see her. She hadn't moved. She stood there, both champagne glasses in her hands, scanning the room not for me, but for solutions. Her shoulders were tense now, not panic, strategy. That's when Virginia appeared beside her, Vicky's mother, arriving like some richly accessorized vulture. They exchanged a few quick words, Vicky's voice low, urgent. Virginia's eyebrows lifted, then lowered again, tightening into a shape that looked like annoyance, probably another complaint about me. Then I saw it happen. Vicky glanced at the marked glass, then at her mother, then back at the glass. And just like that, without a flicker of hesitation, she handed it to Virginia. Her own mother. Virginia accepted it without question, assuming the gesture was hospitality, not attempted chemical manipulation. She even smiled, the way nobles in old movies smile before getting poisoned at feasts. Vicky kissed her mother's cheek, said something that made her laugh, something casual, practiced, rehearsed enough to hide the fact she'd just rerouted the target mid-execution. Then Vicky walked away, toward the man in the expensive suit, the same one whose hand had lingered on her elbow earlier. She didn't look back at her mother, didn't check whether she drank, because she already knew she would. I should have stopped it. I should have crossed the room in 3 steps, ripped the glass from her hand, shouted for everyone to listen. But I didn't. I stood there in the kitchen doorway, beer in hand, watching Virginia Pierce lift the marked glass with the smug confidence of a woman who had never once believed the world could harm her. She drank. And for the first time that night, I wasn't shocked. I was curious, because everything Vicky had planned for me was now about to play out on someone else, and I wanted to see what happened next. 10 minutes passed. 10 long, measured, medically significant minutes. Virginia Pierce, still unaware of the chemical damage quietly moving through her system, stood near the piano, entertaining a new circle of guests who laughed a bit too eagerly at her stories. She gestured broadly with her now empty champagne flute, using it like a conductor's baton to emphasize anecdotes that had probably been boring the first time she told them back in 1998. She looked fine, elegant, animated, annoyingly composed. For a moment, doubt crept in. Maybe I had imagined it. Maybe I had misread the vial. Maybe whatever she dumped in the glass was harmless. Vitamins, powdered collagen, some overpriced beauty supplement her Instagram wellness guru swore by. I almost convinced myself nothing would happen. Then Virginia stumbled. It was small, half a step, a brief wobble. The kind of misstep you'd blame on heels or polished floors. But it wasn't the step that caught my attention. It was her face. The sudden flash of confusion. The pale flicker beneath her makeup. The way her hand shot out to grip the edge of the piano like gravity had just changed its settings. No one else noticed. People are terrible observers until something explodes or bleeds. Another minute. Her breathing changed, faster, shallow. One hand drifted toward her throat, fingers brushing her pearl necklace like it was tightening. Her eyes darted, unfocused, as if her brain was trying to reboot and only half the systems were responding. Then her legs gave out. She collapsed. No grace, no warning, just crumpled to the hardwood floor, champagne flute shattering beside her like punctuation. That got everyone's attention. The scream came first, high-pitched, immediate, theatrical, then motion. Guests surged toward her in a wave of panic, voices overlapping in the same useless questions. What happened? Is she breathing? Somebody call someone! The jazz quartet stopped mid-song, instruments falling silent one by one like synchronized confusion. I was already dialing 911. My voice was calm, too calm. I gave the address, the situation, the approximate age of the woman, symptoms, time of collapse, precise, factual, all the details a first responder would need. Engineers do details even in crisis. Around me, chaos. Inside me, stillness, like the world had gone into slow motion. And then, here came Vicky. She pushed through the crowd fast, not running, but with the urgency of someone who knows precisely how a scene of concern should look. She dropped to her knees beside her mother, hands trembling just enough for witnesses, but not enough to interfere with her mascara. "Mom! Mom!" she cried, voice cracking right on cue. "Please, someone help her!" It was flawless, Oscar level, almost moving, if I hadn't already seen her dose the drink. I knelt beside Virginia, checking her pulse and breathing. She was still alive, faint but stable. Whatever Vicky had used wasn't designed to end her life, only to take her down temporarily. A medical incident, not a fatal outcome. Something that would generate paperwork, not a police investigation. The exact kind of situation you need if your goal is to prove someone is unstable, unfit, unable to manage their own life or their own fortune. And then Vicky's eyes met mine. Just for a second. Most people would have seen fear, or panic, or daughterly grief. But that wasn't what was there. What I saw, clear as a cracked mirror, was irritation. Not horror that her mother had collapsed. Not guilt. Not worry about whether she'd survive. Just annoyance. Because the wrong person had gone down. Then, blink. And the expression vanished, replaced instantly by perfect anguish. She clutched Virginia's hand, calling her name again and again, begging for someone to do something, as if she hadn't already pre-selected the outcome in her head. By the time the paramedics arrived, 7 minutes from the call, just like the dispatcher promised, the party had deflated into whispers and shaken hands covering shocked mouths. Guests scattered out of the way, suddenly united by the primal instinct to not be blamed for anything. The paramedics worked fast, efficient, unbothered by hysteria. They loaded Virginia onto a stretcher while Vicky hovered, crying in all the right rhythms. One of the medics asked questions about prior conditions. Nobody had answers, because there weren't any. Vicky insisted on riding in the ambulance. Before she left, she grabbed my hand, soft, shaking, eyes glistening with tears. "Come as soon as you can," she said, voice cracking just enough to seem raw. "Please, I need you there." "I'll handle things here first," I told her. "Make sure everyone gets home." She nodded, and in that nod was the last moment she thought she still controlled the game. Then she climbed into the ambulance and disappeared behind closing doors. And just like that, I was alone in a house full of witnesses, lies, and fallout. But I wasn't the one who needed saving anymore. I was the one taking notes. When the ambulance pulled away, siren fading into the night, the house didn't fall silent immediately. It unraveled. People moved through the rooms in slow, uncertain patterns, some offering shallow sympathy, others trying to decide whether it was socially acceptable to leave yet. No one knew what to say. The party that had been buzzing with champagne confidence an hour ago now felt like a wake that hadn't been given permission to be called a tragedy. They looked at me differently now, not as the newly wealthy man of the hour, but as the person left behind in a house where something terrible and unexpected had happened. The narrative was already forming in their eyes. Poor Bruce. What a night this must be for him. If only they knew. Someone patted my shoulder. Someone else said to keep them updated. A few hugged me because people like hugging when they don't know what else to do. I answered every concerned murmur with automatic phrases. "She's in good hands. We'll know more soon. Thank you for coming." I sounded like someone who believed what he was saying. Inside, I was still watching the glass break on the hardwood floor. Every detail catalogued, time-stamped, filed. Eventually, the guests began to scatter. A few stayed longer, unsure whether etiquette required them to keep me company. I made it easy and reassured them all. "Go home. I'll be fine." Really. They wanted to believe me. They always had. Within an hour, the house was empty, except for the catering staff who were doing the noble work of pretending spilled champagne and emotional collapse were part of a standard cleanup process. I paid them double and told them to leave the mess. Normally, Vicky would have supervised every last crumb being wiped from every surface, but tonight wasn't normal, and I didn't want anyone else in this house when I did what I needed to do. They packed up fast, grateful for the bonus, and drove away. And then it was quiet. Not peaceful quiet, the kind that hummed, the kind that vibrated in the bones, the kind that isn't silence at all, but the sound of a plan falling apart in real time. I stood in the center of the living room, surrounded by the skeleton of a celebration, half-empty champagne flutes, abandoned coats, crushed hors d'oeuvres ground into the floor, the champagne tower still standing like a monument to someone else's victory. The life Vicky had been performing split open, and beneath the spotlight were hidden wires, trapdoors, and lies. My wife had tried to chemically disable me. She didn't even flinch when it didn't work. She had immediately adapted, rerouted, reassigned the poisoned glass to her own mother as easily as swapping jewelry. That wasn't panic. That was habit. And suddenly, I needed to know. How long had this been planned? How deep did it go? How many steps was I already behind? The part of me that invented a functioning filtration system in a garage, the part that survived 6 years of failure and still finished, kicked in. I needed data, evidence, proof, not guesses, not suspicions, facts. So I went to the one place in the house where Vicky didn't pretend things were beautiful. Her office. The door was locked, of course, not unusual. Vicky liked control disguised as organization, and she thought she was clever about where she hid the spare key, inside a hollowed-out hardcover novel, second shelf, fourth book from the left. I'd known about it since the week she hid it. Marriage teaches you more than love. It teaches observation. I opened the door. The office looked like a catalog spread, Everything symmetrical, everything curated, every object chosen for aesthetic alignment rather than emotional attachment. Even the pens were arranged in a straight row, as if they were being disciplined for misbehavior. I stood in the doorway for a moment, letting the room settle in my mind. This was where she planned things, where she made the spreadsheets and the schedules and the strategies, where the mask got built before she wore it into the world. And if there was a blueprint for what she'd tried tonight, this was where it would be. I closed the door behind me. Then I started opening drawers. The first 2 desk drawers were exactly what I expected. Bills, receipts, contracts, neatly labeled folders, the physical equivalent of a polite smile. Nothing incriminating, nothing emotional. Vicky never left anything dangerous in places meant to be opened by other people. But the 3rd drawer, the one she kept locked, that was different. The lock itself wasn't impressive. A cheap cylinder mechanism, the kind a determined teenager with a hairpin and curiosity could open. A trained engineer? 2 minutes max. I didn't even need real tools. A paperclip bent into shape, a little pressure, a little patience, a click. Inside, I found the version of my wife the world never got to meet. The first thing I noticed, bank statements, not our joint statements. Her private ones, transfers, repeated, cleanly spaced, always under thresholds that would trigger automatic fraud flags. $10,000 here, $15,000 there, $8,000, $12,000. Amounts too large to be casual spending, too small to immediately scream theft. The earliest was 8 months ago. The most recent, 3 days ago. Total, over $60,000. All moved from our shared account to a name I didn't recognize. That alone was enough to prove betrayal. But that wasn't the part that made my pulse slow and sharpen. Next, hotel receipts. Not 1, not 2, a stack. All from the same place, the Meridian Hotel downtown. One of those high-end executive hotels with marble lobbies, soundproof walls, and staff trained to forget what they see. Same room number every time. 1847. Same check-in pattern. Thursdays, 2-hour blocks. Every week for 4 months. The receipts were stapled to each other. Not hidden, not destroyed, just filed. Organized infidelity. Efficient adultery. Not a fling, a routine. And then I found the business card. Hunter Cole, business consultant. The same man in the expensive suit. The same man whose hand rested on her elbow a little too long. The same man she whispered to before she tried to knock me out. Paper clipped to the card was a sticky note. A small heart drawn, no message, no initials, just a heart. That was the moment any chance of calling it a misunderstanding disappeared. But there was still more to see. At the bottom of the drawer, beneath folders of tax returns and old contracts, I found a new folder. One that wasn't filed into any category. It didn't have a label, but the documents inside did. Petition for guardianship due to mental incapacity. Petitioner, Victoria Pierce Colton. Respondent, Bruce Colton. My name. On legal forms, already filled out. Accusations listed clearly. Erratic behavior, paranoia, substance dependency, inability to manage finances, emotional instability, self-harm risk. Every line a lie, but a strategic lie. A lie designed to be clinically believable. There was even a physician affidavit template, not yet signed, but pre-filled with symptoms. All that was missing was a doctor's signature, one that could be obtained after an incident, like a staged medical collapse at a party. There were medication notes, treatment recommendations, therapy plans, an entire future for me already printed, a future inside padded language and locked doors. She hadn't been planning a dramatic poisoning. She hadn't been preparing to end my life. She'd been preparing a diagnosis, not a fatal outcome. That leaves behind power of attorney, same money, no investigation, and she gets to be the concerned, loving wife. I sat there in her office chair, surrounded by the paperwork she had prepared to erase me. A calm settled over me, not panic, not rage, a kind of clarity, The kind that comes only when you've run the data long enough to reach the only possible answer. This wasn't an impulse. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't even about me. It was a business plan. I pulled out my phone and photographed everything. Every page, every transaction, every receipt, every signature line waiting for ink. Evidence. Cold, traceable, undeniable evidence. Then I put everything back exactly where she'd left it. Closed the drawer, locked it, returned the key to the hollowed-out book on the shelf. Because I didn't want her to know I knew. Not yet. When I finished, I walked upstairs into the bedroom we had shared for 5 years and sat in the dark. The house was silent. My pulse was not. Somewhere out there, Vicky was in a hospital, holding her mother's hand, crying the performance of a woman devastated by tragedy. But the truth was simple. Tonight I didn't lose a wife. I discovered I'd never had one. I stayed in the office longer than I meant to. Long enough for the adrenaline to burn off and leave something colder behind. Not grief, not even anger, calculation. Because the truth had settled in fully now. The woman I married hadn't just stopped loving me. She had been actively constructing the end of my existence while smiling at me across shared dinners. You don't recover from that. There is no therapy, no apology, no revelation of misunderstood intentions that survives legal paperwork prepared to permanently erase you. So I went upstairs, into the bedroom that still smelled like us, though now even that felt like a lie. I didn't turn on the lights, didn't need them. I sat on the edge of the bed, the dark room holding the same stillness as the inside of a safe, cool, airless, sealed around secrets. Outside, the city kept going, cars, nightlife, people making plans for futures that didn't include betrayal. Inside this house, time paused. I thought about calling the police, about marching into the hospital with the folder of evidence and dropping it on a doctor's desk, about telling the truth loudly enough that even Vicky couldn't spin it. But the truth is this: justice doesn't satisfy the way people think it does. Court cases are slow, lawyers are predators, and people like Vicky don't crumble, they adapt. She would weaponize the chaos, twist my story until I was the unhinged husband inventing conspiracies, lashing out after a stressful financial success, acting irrational, showing signs of paranoia. The evidence I had was real. But the story she would tell? Equally real, to anyone who wanted a simpler version. No, a courtroom wasn't the battlefield. I'd spent 6 years building a technology that solved a problem everyone said was too difficult. My life hadn't worked because I was lucky. It worked because I approached everything like an equation. This wasn't a tragedy. This was a variable. And variables get solved. Hours passed. I didn't move. Didn't sleep. The world outside changed temperature and tone, and I just sat there, a man who had stepped out of the life he thought he was in, and into the one that had really existed all along. Around 3 a.m, I heard the front door unlock. Vicky. Her footsteps were soft, not sneaking, just exhausted, the kind of tired you stage for sympathy. She climbed the stairs slowly, pausing outside the bedroom before coming in. I lay in the bed and pretended to be asleep. She undressed quietly, as if she didn't want to wake me, a considerate wife, still performing her part in a play she assumed was ongoing. She smelled like hospital antiseptic and expensive perfume. A strange mix. A woman who had spent the night being seen as a grieving daughter while still wearing lipstick, meant to be admired. She stood near me for a moment. I could feel her watching me, trying to decide if I was sleeping or thinking, trying to read me the way she had always believed she could. I kept my breathing even, calm, engineered. After a few seconds, she slipped into bed beside me. The mattress dipped. Sheets shifted. She exhaled, slow, heavy, practiced, and within minutes, she slept. Easily, completely, as if nothing out of the ordinary had happened. As if she hadn't tried to quietly incapacitate her husband, as if she hadn't slipped something harmful to her mother as a backup plan, as if the future she was constructing, one that didn't include me, was still perfectly intact. That was when the last piece clicked into place. She didn't feel guilty. She didn't feel fear. She didn't feel anything she wasn't actively performing, and that meant one thing. She would try again. She wasn't done. But neither was I. I lay there until the sky outside the window turned from black to navy to the early hint of morning gray. And in that slow-blooming light, something settled in me with the same certainty as a solved equation. I was no longer reacting. I was planning. Virginia survived. Diagnosed with acute sedative overdose, Rohypnol. Police came, asked questions, found nothing. Case went cold. I played concerned son-in-law while Vicky played devoted daughter. Both of us acting. But only I knew we were both performing. On the fourth day, I went to Sam Harlow's office. Sam and I had been friends since college. Now he was an attorney with his own firm and a reputation for being aggressive when the situation called for it. I told him the entire story, how she tried to chemically disable me, the affair, the documents I'd discovered. Every detail. "Do you want to involve the police?" Sam asked. "No. Police means public trial, media. Even if I win, I'm still the victim forever. I want to handle this myself, legally, but permanently." Sam studied me. "You understand what you're asking for? Revenge. And you can do what needs to be done? Stay cold?" I thought about Vicky handing the poisoned glass to her own mother. Yes. Then let's get started. First move. Financial lockdown. Sam helped me establish an irrevocable trust within 48 hours. Most of the patent money went into accounts Vicky couldn't touch. We made it look like tax strategy, perfectly legal. Second move, surveillance. I hired a private investigator. Within a week, I had everything. Vicky met Hunter Cole at the Meridian Hotel every Thursday. Room 1847, 2 hours. Very careful, very confident. The investigator sent over recordings. I listened to them alone in my car at 2 a.m. After the intimacy, they talked. They planned. "The hospital thing was bad luck," Hunter said. "But we just wait for Christmas. Same setup. Another party. Try again. I don't want to wait that long. Then be patient. We've come this far." They discussed my money like it was already theirs. Hunter wanted a boat. Vicky wanted Tuscany. They laughed about how easy I'd be to fool. I sat there listening and felt something inside me freeze permanently. At home, I played the perfect husband. Dinners, flowers, support. Vicky responded with extra affection, reinforcing my trust. "You've been distant," she said one night. "Work stress, licensing deals." "Anything I can help with?" "No. How's your mom?" "Better. Coming home next week." She paused. "Bruce, maybe we should take a vacation. Italy, Tuscany." "Of course. Tuscany." "Sounds nice, after this licensing thing." "Promise?" "Promise." That night while she slept, I checked her phone. She'd gotten sloppy. Text messages to Hunter, barely coded, and one that made my jaw clench. He suspects nothing. Easy money. I photographed everything. Virginia came home Monday. I helped set up her recovery room. When Vicky left, Virginia asked me directly, "Do you think someone deliberately gave me something to knock me out?" The air changed. "Why would you ask that?" "Because I've been thinking. I don't take any substances. 3 glasses of champagne shouldn't have caused that, and Victoria gave me that last glass personally." Her eyes were sharp. "I know my daughter. I know what she's capable of. In the hospital, barely conscious, I heard her on the phone. She was angry. Said something about the wrong person being in the hospital. I made a decision. The glass was meant for me." Virginia closed her eyes. "God. Why?" "The money." "And she's not alone." "No. Hunter Cole." Virginia was quiet. Then, "What are you going to do?" "Make sure she can't hurt anyone again." "How?" "Legally, completely, thoroughly." She studied me. "You're not the man I thought you were. Neither is Vicky the daughter you thought she was." If you need testimony about what I heard, I'll do it. Thank you. Sam worked his contacts on Hunter. Found he was a con artist who owed money everywhere. Found a pattern of targeting wealthy women. He's vulnerable, Sam said. His whole operation depends on confidence. We crack that, he falls apart. Sam arranged for me to accidentally meet Hunter at a bar. I played naive, friendly, bought him expensive scotch, mentioned business opportunities. Send me details, Hunter said confidently. What he didn't know, our conversation was recorded. Sam sent it to 3 investors Hunter was courting, added documentation of Hunter's scam history. Within 48 hours, all 3 deals collapsed. Hunter's reputation cracked. Their Thursday meetings became arguments. The recordings caught tension instead of laughter. You said you had it under control, Vicky hissed. Something changed. Maybe you're not as good as you claimed. Watch how you talk to me. Or what? You're worthless without those connections anyway. Fear and anger, making them sloppy. Meanwhile, I played perfect husband. Dinners, flowers, questions about her day. She grew more desperate. About that vacation. We should book something soon. Sure, anywhere you want. Just need to get away. We'll book it this week. Promise. She still thought she had me. 2 weeks later, I filed for divorce. No warning. Papers served at her office mid-workday in front of colleagues. She called screaming, "What the hell is this?" Divorce papers. We didn't even talk about this. There's nothing to talk about. I want a divorce. If this is about stress, it's not. Then what did I do? I could have told her everything. But that wasn't the plan. I'm just done, Vicky. I hung up. She called 17 times. I sent every call to voicemail. I'd already moved to a furnished apartment, left everything behind except what I needed. Vicky discovered the accounts were frozen the next day. Her credit cards declined. Safety net gone. Panic set in fast. She hired Martin Kerrigan, expensive divorce lawyer. They filed for emergency spousal support. Sam blocked it with documentation. They claimed I was hiding assets. Sam buried them in paperwork. They threatened to investigate my mental stability. Bad move. Sam responded with evidence of adultery, financial fraud, and possible criminal charges related to Virginia's hospitalization. Suggested Kerrigan might want to reconsider before getting named in malpractice suits. The threats stopped. Hunter was drowning. Deals collapsed. Reputation destroyed. Expensive apartment downgraded. Car repossessed. The facade crumbled completely. The latest recording showed him breaking down. I can't do this anymore. Everything's falling apart. We stick to the plan. What plan? Bruce filed for divorce. You've got no access to his money. Once the divorce settles, I'm broke, Vicky. Completely broke. Eviction notice came today. I need money now. I don't have any. He froze everything. Then get some from your mother. My mother barely talks to me. Funny how karma catches up, doesn't it? They didn't meet again after that. 2 rats fleeing opposite directions. I waited 3 more weeks. Let them exhaust every option. Let Hunter hit bottom. Then I rented the penthouse at the Meridian, room 1847. Sent them both formal invitations suggesting settlement discussions. Vicky arrived first at 7, suspicious but desperate. She still looked put together, but I saw through it. The stress, the exhaustion, the fear. Bruce. Thanks for coming. Have a seat. We're waiting for one more. Who? The door opened. Hunter walked in looking terrible. Cheap clothes, unshaven. He saw Vicky, then me. What is this? Sit down, Hunter. I'm leaving. I blocked the door. You'll want to hear this. Something in my voice made him sit. Vicky calculated angles. I pulled out my laptop, connected it to the TV. Show and tell time. The first video started. Vicky and Hunter in the same suite. Not the intimate part, just the conversation afterward where they planned things. Once he's unable to function, the guardianship paperwork gets approved, Vicky's voice said. Then we have full control. And the substance won't end his life? No. Just enough to trigger a health crisis. Makes him look unreliable. They discussed dosage, timing, how to mark the glass. Vicky went white. Hunter looked sick. This is illegal recording. One-party consent state. Hotel security recorded you. They provided footage after I explained you were planning poisoning. I played the next video. From my hidden home camera. Clear view of Vicky doctoring the champagne glass. That could be anything. Lab tested the broken glass pieces. Found rohypnol. That's felony assault. Federal controlled substance charges. 7 to 10 years minimum. I didn't mean... Really? I pulled out folders. Bank transfers showing you stole $60,000. Hotel receipts. Text messages discussing the poisoning. Prepared guardianship documents showing premeditation. I have everything. Enough to send you both to prison for a decade. Real tears now. Not performance. Bruce, please. Shut up. I turned to Hunter. You're thinking you can run. I didn't do anything illegal. Conspiracy to commit fraud. Conspiracy to commit felony assault. You were part of every plan. Every recording includes you. You're going to prison right beside her. Please. His voice cracked. I'm sorry. I'll do anything. Just don't. I can't go to prison. Anything? Anything. Get on your knees. What? You heard me? Hunter looked at Vicky. Found no help. Looked back. You can't be serious. You wanted to humiliate me. Take everything. Leave me helpless. Seems fair you experience a fraction of that. Bruce, please. On your knees. Now. Pride fought terror. Terror won. He slid to his knees, shaking. Apologize. Mean it. I'm sorry. Louder. I'm sorry. For everything. The affair, the plan, the money. I made a terrible mistake. I looked down at him. This confident man from my party, now broken and begging on a hotel floor. Pathetic. I turned to Vicky. She was watching Hunter with disgust. Watching her partner collapse destroyed what remained of her composure. Bruce, please. We can fix this. Counseling, whatever you need. Fix this? You tried to knock me out and take 20 million? When I avoided it, you gave the poison to your own mother. You felt annoyed when she collapsed instead of me. You're a sociopath, Vicky. I never meant... You absolutely did. I laid out more papers. Financial documents proving fraud. Updated divorce papers showing fault entirely on your side. You get nothing. No house, no money, no alimony, nothing. You can't... I can. I have 3 lawyers who reviewed everything. It's airtight. And these... I held up the final folder. Are copies of everything going to police tomorrow, unless you both sign agreements right now. What agreements? That you disappear from my life completely. No contact, no claims, no lawsuits. Vicky, you get nothing in the divorce. Hunter, you leave the state permanently. You both sign NDAs. You never speak about me, to me, or near me ever again. And if we sign, maybe the evidence doesn't go to the police. Maybe you get freedom instead of prison. How do we know you won't send it anyway? You don't. But I'm offering guaranteed prison or possible freedom. That's more than you offered me when you planned to have me declared incompetent. Silence. Hunter still on his knees crying. Vicky staring at the contracts. This gives you everything. Yes. It's not fair. I leaned close. You tried to destroy me. Fairness doesn't exist anymore. You made the rules when you poured poison in my champagne. I'm just playing the game you started. She searched my face for mercy, for the man she'd married. Didn't find him. Where do I sign? She signed with shaking hands. I gave her copies. Now leave. Bruce, leave. She walked to the door, stopped. I did love you once, at the beginning. No, you loved what I could give you. There's a difference. She left. Hunter signed without argument, started to stand. One more thing. If I ever see you again anywhere, everything goes to police immediately. If I hear your name, if you come within 100 miles, everything goes to the DA. Understand? I understand. You'll never see me again. Get out! He ran from the room. I was alone in the suite where they'd planned my destruction. I poured Macallan 18, the kind Hunter used to order before his world collapsed. My phone buzzed. Sam. Is it done? It's done. I finished my drink, gathered the signed documents, walked out of the Meridian Hotel into the night. Behind me, 2 destroyed lives. Ahead, whatever came next, I'd achieved exactly what I'd set out to achieve. Complete, total, irreversible victory.